All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland and our guest Samuel Hofman. We're talking about Nibiru. Okay, so before we went to break, now don't get me wrong, we should live in a world where people want to be educated and people want to know things. But you're telling us that people need to get on board and they need to know. And that prompts the question, why?
Well, for one, they don't want us to know. For two, every time this cycle occurs within known history, the Great Flood of China, the transition of the massive earthquakes and everything at the last cycle, the end of numerous highly advanced cultures at the time, and the breakup of our planet, global climate change, global migration. We're seeing the effects of that right now, and if you look at like down south right now, they're having the continuation of summer and this massive heat wave. And a lot of people aren't being informed. Like 1,500 people last month died in France from a heat wave. Numerous people died this year and last year in Japan from a massive heat wave. The second sun is putting out a great deal of changes. Now, it's not getting us with all of its power, but most of it's being masked by our sun. But, when the separation reoccurs and we start to go our way and they go their way, there might be some drastic, noticeable extreme changes beyond those that we're already experiencing. We're seeing massive earthquakes that are more numerous than ever were before. We're seeing massive flooding and granted, the heating up of our atmosphere is causing a great deal of this, but they're attributing it to, man's output of CO2, and I'm sure there's a great deal of that to do, but all the planets are heating up. All the planets tipped when the second sun got here in 2011. The axes of all the planets, because a big magnet came into and said hello and started yanking on our planets. And of course, we had the massive tidal wave in 2007, and I believe that is when we first started getting what we refer to as thread attached, where the grab and pull of each other, where we started, because they're like two opposite magnets pulling each other, and they're doing this dance together. In most models, they only show one pass of Nibiru. But there's so far it's been like 4 cycles of the group spinning and rotating in front of us as we do our normal yearly thing. So during these changes, and during for instance the passing of Atu's moon right now is so close to us and so massive, it's causing emotional trauma amongst people. It's causing tectonic plate movement. It's shifting up in electrical occurrences. And people, if they really would like to survive a possible coming event, I think they should plan. And if they expect that maybe they're just going to let, God sort it out for them, well, then they don't have to necessarily listen to them. But if you'd like a handle up on, maybe getting away from the coastal water regions a little faster than normal, because science doesn't necessarily know what they're talking about when they're attributing this to global warming and not taking it into account as solar system warming.
So this isn't undoing the concept of man-made climate change, or it's not supporting it and it's not unsupporting it. It's just its own separate thing that is causing a lot of our problems.
And our oceans are the worst suffering of this. The oceans sequester every day some 300 million tons of carbon every day, and we're seeing of course the life wash up on shore is dead, but then of course that has to do with Fukushima and the 3 tons of radioactive waste they're dumping per day into our oceans directly, not counting the amount of atmospheric radiation that we're all receiving right now. People, if you take these things into account, you can protect yourself a little bit better. Don't go out in a rainstorm. Pay attention to when these storms are coming in, because they're going to be much more violent. The passing of the asteroids between the planets, between Earth and the passing planets, are causing these massive electrical storms, and a lot of people have been seeing them. Yesterday or the day before, Seattle had some 200 lightning strikes beyond count in their records in just a matter of an hour or so. I don't remember the exact amount of time, but these storms are coming in, and they're quick. The passings are quick. The planet can go by us within a matter of an hour or so, and we have these freak weather events that are affiliated with this as well. And this is another reason that people prepare and they plan. And if they're informed, they have an opportunity to be calmer in the face of disaster, and then maybe a level of understanding that they won't panic as much.
So the only real threat coming from this situation is an environmental one, a climate one, a weather one. There is nothing else for people to be concerned about.
Well, there is the presence of the Texas cube, for instance. The Incans and the Mayans would refer to them as Quetzalcoatl, and they're back. And we've got direct evidence of that because we've been filming them every day for the last month, every day, with complete, wonderful square captures, and then we do comparatives, and if what they're finding in Hungary and they're also finding above London is, with a minor variation in angle in the picture shot, and they're both the Texas cube, and you can see the facial markings in the side orb and the little other Star Destroyer ships alongside it, and when those two pictures match, it's real. They're here, and we've got lots of craft. And I'm not, generally a person that goes, oh, UFOs, because for the longest times on Montana Skywatchers, we never even discussed it, because it wasn't, it's this little tiny dot that we can't identify, or, gee, it's a plane that's doing this, or God, that's a bird. But these are actual, physical, 100% attributable sightings. Otherwise, we wouldn't even discuss it.
So what's the implication of that? I mean, do we have any idea why they would be there? Well, we know. Here I go. We know that we are the factory planet for the larger half of our solar system. I am told that there are 2 to 3 races that live in that group of planets. We service them with commodities. Every 3,654 years old, they come down to, when the planets are close, they pick up these commodities which serve the higher races, and we distribute it to them willingly in an effort to get a level of control, as a little factional control here and there. And then we could go and discuss 9/11 and all that, but I'd rather not. The main commodity is gold, and we supply. Earth is the factory that supplies it. It's in their tech. It's what they use to prolong their life. There's a lot more to gold than people understand. It's one of the few compounds in the universe that actually illuminates on its own. Yes, it's bright and shining, but it actually puts off its own light, and it doesn't decay. It does not rust. It does not decay. So we're servicing a larger race, and I truly believe that at some point in time, some of us should have the opportunity to elevate ourselves out of this slavery role. Right. So, I mean, that's a lot for a lot of people to swallow, though. You have to understand.
I know, and I'm sorry about that, but I swear it's face-to-face truth. That's word one I got from the Pleiadian, and this was not channeling. This gentleman who was 7 foot tall with a really weird-looking head wearing white robes stood there for a couple hours and communicated with me and 3 of my friends, and we all stood there and listened to this story, and so. And then he told me a bunch of stuff about my future life, which has come to pass. And so it's so correct and so factual, I cannot argue with it. And then here, alone for the last 10 years, all of this has come true. And so I really can't argue with it and deny it. And I've had witnesses. Otherwise, I would think myself nuts if I hadn't had 3 friends right there with me.
Yeah, well,
I thought, okay, this is a dream. It's got to be.
Well, we got about a minute up until break here. But why you? Why do you think he chose to tell you?
Well, I wrote a paper in 1978, which got nixed by the U.S. government in 1980, and it was written called Our Binary Solar System. I knew we had to have 2 suns and 2 sets of planets because the chemistry didn't work out any other way. There was no way to deal with the aberrant behavior of Neptune and Uranus at the end of our orbit unless there was something large enough that was affiliated with us in order to do that. It's not some random dark planet in the middle of nowhere. And something had to fit. And I never was comfortable with Saturn and Jupiter being in the middle of our atomic structure when the heavier objects should seemingly be closer to the center, because that's how centrifugal mass and all of that would work. So I started searching, and if you look at it like the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, the visitor Klaatu, he got down, started talking to people, wanted to find out who he spoke to, and then he ended up in the long run speaking with a professor who had a chemistry equation that was very close to the truth. And basically, they found out that this was me, and they spoke to me and said, "Okay, you're going to do this, or you're intelligent enough to do this." And I guess the rest is history. Because, I mean, why me, God? I would love to know that. But other than the fact that I wrote this paper in 1978 through 1980, where they nixed it and classified it.
All right. Well, we're coming up here on a hard break, Samuel. You're listening to Samuel Hofman here on Radio Wasteland. Come on back.